depression. Ooh, yeah. Battering down depression. Oh, yeah. Whoa. Ooh, yeah. Whoa. Are you ready to stand up and fight the right revolution? Are you ready to stand up and fight it just like soldiers? Many are called, few are chosen. Many are called, few are chosen. Ooh, yeah. Whoa. Ooh, yeah. Whoa. Gotta fight the right fight in this time, yeah. Well, yeah, yeah, yeah. Ah, yeah, yeah. Are you ready to stand up and fight the right revolution? Are you ready to stand up and fight it just like soldiers? Many are called, few are chosen. Many are called, few are chosen. If you wanna live forever, you gotta love each other. Say you gotta live on forever, yeah. And love one another. Boy, gotta fight the right fight in this time. Oh, boy. Oh, yeah. Giving and loving and sharing and caring for your people. Oh, yeah. A man is made according to his work, yeah. Oh, yeah. Say we gotta live on forever. Love each other. We gotta live on forever. And love one another. Oh, yeah. Living and loving and sharing and caring. Oh, yeah. Never joke, never joke, never joke. Oh, money, never money, never money, money, never money, money, now know what you can even money. Money, never money, never money, money, never money, money, you can keep, you can even money. When you've been knocked for a bum, in a bill tell me money. Now because your money done, you come with conniving money.
Can you hear me? Yes, thank you very much.
Tell me money. Now because your money done, you hustle for tell me money. Yes, money, never money, never money, money, never money, money, now know what you conniving money. Neighbor joker, neighbor joker, neighbor joker. That's all the money that me walk for. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. This all the money that me walk for. I said money, neighbor, money, neighbor, money, money, neighbor, money, money. Now I know what you can have in money. Oh, Joseph. Never joke, never joke, never joke. Oh, money, never money, never money, money, never money, money. Now I know what you can have in money. Money, never money, never money, money, never money, money. You can keep, you can have in money. When you've been knocked for a bum, in a bill tell me money. Now because your money done, you come with conniving money. When you had your pocket full, in a bill tell me money. Now because your money done, you hustle for tell me money. Yes, money, never money, never money, money, never money, money. Now know what you conniving money. Neighbor joker, neighbor joker, neighbor joker. That's all the money that me walk for. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. This is all the money that me walk for. I said money, never money, never money, money, never money, money. Now I know what you can have in money. Oh, Joseph.
We're going to be delving into some very important issues because there have been some developments that we need to talk about. It's Guyana. The politics move very fast, and so tonight we are going to be getting into some of that stuff. So share the link. I know some of you in the United States are beginning to prepare for Thanksgiving, and some of you, like myself, have to travel. I am far away from where my siblings, my relatives, my family are, so I've got to do some travel to get there for Thanksgiving. And, even if you don't agree with the meaning of Thanksgiving and the American significance of it, it's a time for family to get together and the pandemic really, I would imagine last year, curtailed much of that Thanksgiving thing. So We are trying to make up this year. Last year, I didn't get to see my relatives. In fact, it's been going on to 2 years, so I'm looking forward to visiting with them, and I know most of you are. So here we are tonight. The topic of the program tonight is that the PPP is governing like thugs. They're governing like thugs. It is the title of my column in Village Voice this weekend. And I am making the point that these people are governing like thugs. And of course, that has consequences. That has consequences for the larger politics. Look, there are some developments that we've got to pay attention to. One development is that more and more people are who enabled the PPP last year. Many of them helped to put the PPP into office. And some of them have now begun to come out against the PPP and what they're doing. The most recent, of course, is former ambassador. He was in charge of Go Invest during the PPP time in office. Jeff De Silva came out. Today's Stabrook News reports that former PPP government official Geoffrey De Silva has expressed concern that the current administration is proceeding on the same corrupt trajectory as its predecessor. De Silva, who has written a series of letters to the press in recent months on a wide range of topics, including good governance, corruption, race relations, and the oil economy, cited a number of troubling occurrences in a missive yesterday to Sunday Stabrook. Among those were that under the current PPP government, the beneficial owners of the Kanji and Kaitro oil blocks have not been revealed. And the review of the Piara oil project has not been published. He said that a new company whose owner is related to a very senior official has been given infrastructure contracts. De Silva, who served for a long period under the PPP as head of Go Invest, noted that some procurement bids were withdrawn and resubmitted a number of times. He did not cite a specific example, but this has occurred in the agriculture sector with sheep islands. De Silva also served as Minister of Trade. He said that contracts have been awarded to unqualified persons with political connections. The last Sunday, Stabrook carried a report on the continuing questions surrounding the award of a school building contract, a company comprised of a DJ and football promoters. De Silva, who had a stint as Guyana's ambassador to Venezuela, also contended that some political appointees have been hired based mainly on party loyalty and not also on merit. That is, their integrity, ability, talent, effort, and achievements. Pointing out that it is challenging to direct and prove corruption, De Silva listed some red flags that will help to detect corruption. He says a purchase order or contract is awarded to a particular supplier or contractor who does not have the experience, the required facilities and resources. 2, some legal requirements and regulations are bypassed. 3, goods and services are purchased that are not necessary or appropriate for the institution to successfully function. 4, goods or services are not delivered or they are substandard. 5, there are no documents to support unusually high fees, commissions, and other expenses. 6, the supplier or contractor is urgently requesting advance cash payments. 7, a supplier or contractor wants payments to be made to a person or company other than his or her company. 8, there are close connection links through family members, relatives, friends, and associates between a particular official and the supplier or contractor who insists that other staff should not be present in meetings to discuss the contract. 9, some qualified supporters and contractors are not chosen because of their race, ethnicity, gender, age, or class. 10, expenditures for travel expenses and hospitality are not backed up with receipts and other support. He went on, the priority for Parliament's Public Accounts Committee should be to promote the passage of the existing draft legislation to reward whistleblowers and protect them from unjustified retaliation. The perception of hypocrisy on fighting corruption is a powerful instrument that could make or break a government. This is Jeffrey De Silva, who is alerting the rest of us. These red flags under the party that he was once a member or supporter, but he worked for them. And he is now drawing to our attention that corruption, especially as it relates to contracts, is rife under this government. He's drawing our attention to what's happening with the distribution of the oil blocks, the awarding of this oil block, the secrecy surrounding these oil transactions, these blocks. Who are the people? We don't know. Remember when the coalition did not make public how much it got from Exxon as startup money? Remember what happened? Oh, it's a big hue and cry. And now this government is doing worse. We had Mr. Christopher Ram on last week. Mr. Ram said the government is not interested in good governance in the oil industry. He said the government is overplaying its mandate. He condemned the government for the pittance that is given to public servants. The Kaito News is crusading against the government and its handling of the oil industry. Mr. Chris Ram talk about the inability to audit, to do that audit on the $9 billion. We have Schuman, the deputy speaker, coming out against the government on a whole host of issues. And what is the significance of these people coming out? Our first response is going to be, well, we don't want to hear from them because they help to put the government in power. They have to put the government in power. So we don't want to hear from them. I would advise against that. It is important for us to hear from them because they help to strengthen our case. We've been saying from day one that the PPP is a corrupt government, that it's a government that doesn't concern about any rule of law. We have been saying it now. People from within their camp, or some of these people may argue that they're not in their camp, but they supported them. They supported them coming to power. And now 15 months later, these people are coming out against them. Another one, Alan Fenty, who writes a Friday column in the Stabrook News. Every week, Alan Fenty for the last year has been bigging up this government, has been talking about how the election was rigged by the PNC and this government is the best thing since sliced bread. In his column this past Friday, he says, "My simple question for myself and all citizens interested, is the 15-month government showing any gratitude?" Let me read that. Alan Fenty, who helped use this column to help put this government in power, been defending them. Here is what he wrote on Friday. I quote him, "The piece was coincidental with my thought processes assessing how the Ali Jagdeo victors are showing regard for international support garnered last year. My simple question for myself and all citizens interested is this: is the 15-month government showing any gratitude? Does it have to? Continue with Fenty. Put another way, my wonderment is grappling to process whether the PPP, as it goes about consolidating authority, then power, is conscious about how CARICOM and the wider geopolitical world is assessing its stewardship since the 2020 solidarity extended. Now, note, he says CARICOM and its geopolitical world gave the PPP solidarity last year. We know it was more than solidarity, but more open story jump out. And he's admitting that international forces helped the PPP to come to power. Now, we have been saying that. Now, their own enablers are saying it. And they feel the PPP doesn't care. It got CARICOM support. It got the wider geopolitical world support. And now it's consolidating power. So, Fenty, De Silva, Truman, Chris Ram, and many others, after 15 months, they're realizing what we did last year might have been a mistake. No, they're not saying that. They're not saying it's a mistake, but they're saying the government is not governing properly. That is why I say that this government is governing like a set of thugs, Thugs don't care who helped them and who didn't help them. All they care about is to wreak havoc, and what the outcome is going to be, let it be. That's how thugs operate. Thugs don't reason. Thugs don't concern whether you're friend or family. The PPP is engaged in thuggishness, has been engaged from day one. It spent the first couple of months in power, chasing down Lowenfield and other people at GCOM, charging them, jailing them. It called out soldiers and sent them to West Bobis against people protesting. It covered up the murder of those boys. Is that let loose the SWAT team. It is engaging economic violence against public servants, other people who they perceive to support the opposition. When you give public servants a 7% increase, it is really a decrease. It's a minus zero. That is economic violence against public servants. When you give $250,000 to a set of workers who support you and give nothing to other workers who don't support you, that's economic violence and economic thuggishness. Only a thug will be conscious of the ethnic environment that we live in, will be conscious that people are charging them of racism, and yet in the face of those charges, you're going to give $250,000 to one group and give zero to the other group. That is economic thuggishness. Only a thug government would decide not to audit $9 billion and let money go down the drain like that, because they are front companies. You heard De Silva, he went through, he said these are the red flags. The PPP got front companies in the oil industry. That is a small place, and we know that. Then he said, you're right, I forgot Chris Glenal, who turned this paper, used this paper to help to defend the PPP and bring them to power. Glenal is still my partner, but he parted company with me and Lincoln because we did not go along with the narrative that the PPP won the election. He stuck out his paper neck for the PPP. No, he's crusading against the PPP. Their own enablers. Forget about we. They can say we are anti-government. Their own enablers. The Stabrook News, which up to this day refuses to carry any critique of the 2020 election that is not in line with their view that the PPP won the election. They're running editorials now every week, criticizing the PPP for what it's doing. Look at the thuggishness that the PPP has engaged in for 15 months. And these entities, these persons, they enabled the PPP to come to power, and they were muzzled. They're accusing the opposition of saying the PPP was installed. It's not the opposition who said the PPP was installed. The word installed was used by the American State Department. And we know that the Americans helped enable the PPP to come to power. And it's they who said it was an installed government. Because they know something about politics. When you have an election that is was as contested as the 2020 election, where both major parties said we have evidence that the other one's thief. It's a contested election. And the Americans know that any government that arises from a contested election is an installed government. It's not an elected government. The Americans knew that. They know that. But the Americans' position is that we do what we have to do. We help a government to power that we feel is going to look after our interests better. But we know that's an installed government. But if Kaitro News and Stabrook News and all the others would have us believe that this was a legally elected government. It was not. It's not. An elected government comes out of elections in which both sides agree that the government was fairly elected. All the anomalies, all the thing that came out of the recount, it's there, the evidence is there. GCOM has the evidence. Why do you think Nandalal, in his so-called electoral reforms, no reform about the voters list, no reform on people who live outside and can vote in Guyana's elections, no reform about multiple voting, no reform about people who are working on election day and how they vote. You got 20 people in a district who are working on election day, but you get 50 of them vote. Where the extra 30 come from? None of those things Nandalal dealt with. All the anomalies that were unearthed during the recount, none of those. What is the penalty, Nandalal? What is the penalty for somebody in charge of a polling station and there is no statutory document in the box? What is the penalty for that? Nandalal didn't put that in his electoral reform. The police said people who voted were not in the country. What is the penalty for that, Anil? No, Anil didn't deal with that. Anil not interested in that. Anil decided that the PNC people are accused of certain electoral crimes, and he wants to pass legislation to give life sentence for these crimes that he said the PNC people carry out? What about the crimes that your people are alleged to have carried out? What about the 47 boxes? What is the penalty to have boxes without statutory document? Those boxes weren't found in Buxton or Pleasance or Golden Grove or Anns Grove or Denhamstel or Belladrum or Oaktown. They were found in One Repose and other areas that are partial to you, Anil Nandalal. No, those are not crimes. So in an election in which both sides said we have evidence of fraud, how can you award that election to a government, to a party, sorry, one of the parties, and say it's free and fair? The Americans got it right. The Americans agree we gave the election to one of them, but the government was not elected. It was installed. The Americans are straight up. All the others said the government was elected. And their elected government, they're now saying is corrupt. Their elected government, they're now saying they're not engaged in good governance. So, we've been saying that before the elections were called. We were saying once you have a contested election and you award it to one side or the other, you are giving that side license to do whatever they want, because they are going to say, the Americans say, we are the right governors. The Chamber of Commerce said we are the right governors. Chris Ram said we are the right governors. Stabrook News say we are the right governors. Kaitor News say we are the right governors. The Commonwealth said we are the right governors. CARICOM say we are the right governors. The Canadians say we are the right governors. And since all of them say we are right, it means the other side is wrong and we have a wide mandate. Never mind we got 50% of the vote. We get 100% of the power brokers. The PPP then sees its mandate not from the 50% that they said they get. The mandate came from the fact that important voices, important regional organizations, important international organizations said they win. And if the Americans and Canadians and Europeans and CARICOM and Commonwealth and OAS say we win, then we get 100% mandate. And any government that perceives itself having such a wide mandate is going to govern like thugs. No regard for the law, no regard for the opposition, no regard even for the people who helped them to get into power. No regard for anybody. Insensitive, thugs. And so what they did, the international community, CARICOM, the Chamber of Commerce, the media. What they did last year is that they helped to install a sub-government, and then they enabled them for an entire year. And now, like Judas, some of them, they're pretending that all the things that the government is now doing, it's based on some bad governance. No, it's not. The logic of installing a government in an election that was so contested is what you get now. The hatred for people like me, Lincoln, Lewis, the hatred for us by the PPP and their enablers is that we were critical of the coalition. We were. We supported the coalition. My party was part of the coalition. But I'm not a political thug. Which means that if I see wrong, it doesn't matter whether it's a government that I support. If I see wrong, I will call it out. And I did that. And the coalition punished me. They punished Lincoln. But when it came to the election and we saw what was happening, we said, no, we are not going to go along with your narrative that the coalition rigged the election. In my case, I said, let me wait and see the evidence. At one point, I said, look, you all don't worry about this election. Just call this election off. I used the flowery language. I said, discard those boxes. What I meant was, look, you all forget about this election. Call it a draw. And you all form an interim government. Let it run for 3 years. I suggested that Granger should be the president and whoever the PPP should be the prime minister. They cussed me out for that, but I didn't care who was the president or the prime minister. All I was saying is that you have a joint government. And let the joint government repair the country. The PPP by itself can't repair the country. The PNC by itself can't repair the country. If they could have done it, they would have done it. One was in there for 28 years. The other was there for 23 years. The other one come back for 5 years. And they've not repaired the country. So try something new. And you all have an opportunity now. Because both of you all say the election thief. So forget about the election. Call it a draw or an inconclusive election. GCOM has the authority to do that. That is what Lowenfield recommended. He said after the recount, all the anomalies I see, I can't determine a winner. So Vincent said, I said, well, if there's no winner, call it a draw and put both of them, give them half and half, the government. And together, you all repair the country. You all repair the elections machinery, repair the police force, do it together. So there's no issue here of discrimination. You all determine how much together, determine how much public servants must get, repair industrial relations. That's what we asked for. To this day, I have not said the coalition won. I was a candidate for the coalition. Many coalition supporters believe the coalition win, right? That's them. I don't have a problem with people believing that their party win. But I don't know who win. The election was inconclusive. The recount order showed clearly that the PPP was engaged in shenanigans before election day. The recount order established that. The court decided not to use it, and they said let it go to a petition. The court was being disingenuous, because when the PPP said they see Mingo do something, Mingo mistabulate, he used spreadsheet. When they went to the court should have tell them, as they would normally would tell parties, come back to us with a petition. But no, the court entertained the PPP. And that is what caused the 5 months. It's not the coalition that caused the 5 months. If a party see rigging in our system, that party wait until after the election and use it as an evidence of petition. That's how we operate in Guyana and the English-speaking Caribbean. Now, the PPP said they saw rigging, and they went to the court. And the court initially said, go back and correct what you're doing, what you see wrong. The court tells you, come, correct what you see wrong. Mingo changed what he was doing. The PPP and his henchmen then invade the commission office, and at that point they break the election up. They broke up the election. The question is why they break up an election that they were so certain that they had won and they had seen thieving. They break up the election and then go to court, and the court entertain them. And then Granger allow them to suck him into the recount order. Recount, they allow him they suck him in. His own people tell him don't go down that road. Because there were 10 results from the 10 regions, which had to go to GCOM for validation. But Granger went along with the recount order. He should not have. But the recount order threw up the unexpected. The recount order showed the PPP rigged before election day. The court then, instead of using that recount results to arrive at a determination, they decided not to. Now, I'm an institution man. And so, one has to go along with what the court ruled, but I think the court acted badly. They did not read the political situation, or they ignored it. You see, the law doesn't exist in a vacuum. It doesn't. The law doesn't exist in a vacuum. The law is part of the wider society. And the court, being conscious of a disputed election, should have acted differently. I disagree with the court in that way. The appeal court made the fundamental point that so long as you had a recount, and the recount had certain rules, then you are changing the meaning of a valid vote. A non-valid vote is usually a spoiled vote. But now the recount order was saying A non-valid vote is much more than a spoiled vote. Because you're going into those boxes to figure out how the votes got into the boxes, what kind of votes they are in the boxes. And you went into the boxes and you're saying, in effect, that votes in a box with no statutory documents cannot be valid votes. Votes in a box by people who are not in the country on the day of voting is not a valid vote. And the appeal court said, valid votes, the recount order, changed the meaning of a valid vote. The CCJ disagreed. I'm saying they all were enablers of the PPP coming to power. The Americans were the only honest one who said, we helped them to come to power, but they're not elected. They were installed. All the others said, oh, the court said they win. The court did not entertain all the evidence at its disposal. The court did not entertain the evidence of the recount order. Did not. It did not. The court ruled on forms, not essence. And so they installed a thug government. Thug government. And the PPP is governing now like thugs. And some of them, like my friend Chris Ram, like Mr. De Silva, like Dalal, like Schumann, at least they've decided to come clean and said this is a set of thugs that we have helped to put. Now they haven't walked back their narrative that the government was elected. They haven't walked that back. But they're saying this elected government is behaving like thugs. So where does that leave us? As I said, do not shun these people. They're helping our case. They're helping our case. This is what we've been saying. And now their own people are saying it. So we need to hear those people. We need to hear them. Let them say it loud and clear. Because they're helping to make our case. So that's the first thing you need to do. We need to do. Don't shun them. I will invite them on this program. Let them come here and let them critique the PPP on this program. They're helping our case. So that's the first attitude change I want to recommend this evening. Yes, cost them that they help to put the PPP in power, but recognize that this is 15 months later. And at least they're coming out. And if they're coming out, we must help them to come out more. Now, thugs are violent people. I said, look at the economic violence that has been unleashed on supporters of the opposition. Look at the economic violence. Don't say the government don't have money. The government borrowing left, right, and center. And they get $250,000 they can give to sugar workers. Rice farmers, they give them must be more than $250,000. Some of their own people said there was corruption in the money they give to the rice farmers and other agricultural workers, other farmers who were impacted by the flood. They give them more than $250,000. So you give rice farmers more than $250,000, you give sugar workers $250,000, and you give the other side nothing. That's economic violence. It's also economic violence that's operating within an ethnic context. It's ethnic economic violence. Most of the public servants are Black people, teachers, nurses, policemen and women. People working in ministry. They're already the lowest paid. The average salary for a public servant is below the average salary for a cane cutter. No, I'm not against cane cutters getting more money, getting better wages. But when you're giving them better wages and you're giving the other side starvation wages, something is wrong. And what is wrong is that you are engaging in ethnic violence against a major ethnic group in your country. You're not meeting with the public service unions. You're not meeting with the GTU, the GPSU. They've been calling on you to meet. You have not been meeting. But since a couple of sugar workers come out on the road, you're calling God, we'll meet with them and settle it next day. Oh man, oh, you got shame. You know, say, oh God, if me do this, people like David Hines and them gon call me out on it. We can't be so barefaced, man. Let me give them a little 15%. David Hines ain't gonna quarrel about that. But 7% he gonna quarrel. They got shame. They don't care. They don't care. Because they're thugs. No. Let me deal with this question. Thugs govern by violence and they provoke violence. The PPP must know that they're dealing with human beings. They must know that bucket will go well one day, bottom go fall out. Bob Marley in the song I Shot the Sheriff, he said, I was going out of town one day and I saw Sheriff Brown and I know he will shoot me. So I shot first. I shot the sheriff. And if I'm guilty, I will pay. The PPP must know that there is a limit to what people can take. Brother Bob again say, ain't no rules now. No bullet can stop me now. They must know And yet they are doing what they're doing, which means their intention is to provoke violence. You see, violence is not just the naked physical violence. It's the promotion of violence through your policies. You're frustrating people. Look how opposition supporters beating up on their leaders. Quite rightly. The PPP is provoking violence. They want the opposition side to get so frustrated that they will engage in violence. They want that. Because they will then say, we are the victims. They will then hold up East Indians to say, look what them black man do to you. And are you want to attack what we doing? Look what them black man, they're provoking violence. Let me make it very clear. I'm against violence. I've studied ethnically divided societies. And I've seen what ethnic violence does to communities, to countries. Look at the Palestinians and the Israelis. Never ending. Never ending. Look at the violence between Pakistan and India. Never ending. Look at the violence in the Sudan. Never ending. Look at the long violence between in Ireland there. When you study ethnic violence, it's one of the worst forms of violence in the world. One of the worst forms of political violence. It ain't got no rules. Societies can recall our own country had our ethnic violence 50 years ago, 60 years ago. And we haven't recovered from that. And that wasn't a large-scale violence. It wasn't at the level of the Palestinians and Israelis. So I am against violence, and for those who think that I have something to say, I want to urge us that violence is not the way to go. Violence is not the way to go. But if you are the victim of violence, what do you do? I'm against violence. But if my supporters are the recipient of violence, economic violence, physical violence, police violence, must I allow my fear of violence, my opposition to violence? Must I allow my opposition to violence to turn me into a coward in the face of violence? You know what? To give you a quotation. And the quotation goes like this. If I have to choose between violence and cowardice, I will choose violence. And you know who says so? Not Marx. Mahatma Gandhi. The Prince of Nonviolence said, if I have to choose between violence and cowardice, I will choose violence. I am not for violence as a solution. I'm opposed to it. I explained just now why. it consumes all of us. At the end of the day, people may win small victories. I'm from a village that the center of violence between 2002 and 2006, and the world, Guyana and the world, are yet to understand how that violence has destroyed my village, the impact. We are rebuilding our village. Those 4 years of violence has done untold destruction. The raping of women during those 4 years, unspeakable. And nobody, not the government, not the supporters of the gunmen, nobody has come back to that village and said, how can we help in post-war Buxton? Because it was a war on our soil. By external forces. The gunmen didn't originate in Buxton, and then the government sent in their phantom to deal with the gunmen, and our village became a graveyard. To this day, we have not fully recovered. The first time I'm speaking openly on that thing. And I, along with Kwayana and Andaye, were the only 3 Black leaders who, when Indians were being killed, they passed through Buxton, they beat them, some of them came. We were the only ones who couldn't condemn it. Does the PPP remember that? Oh no, Kwayana is the biggest racist. David Hines is more racist than Kwayana. We who defended the Indians when they were under attack. So what I study and what I see about ethnic violence, I do not wish that on my country. But like the Mahatma, if I had to choose between cowardice and self-defense, because if you are responding to the violence of the state, you are doing so in self-defense. So, I think the time has come to defend ourselves. No violence. No violence. The objective of our self-defense must not be violence. It must be freedom. Let the violence come from those who they got violence on the brains. And they usually want to goad us, they provoke us. So when we respond in self-defense, they say, you see, it's violence. But Marley said, he who lives to live, he who fight and run away lives to fight another day. What it means that you got to fight smart. You don't fight to get killed today. The hotter the struggle, the sweeter the victory. That's what Brother Bob said in the song Jamming. Or he's in one of the 2. So, I think it's time for self-defense. We have to figure out forms of self-defense that are short of violence. That's where we are. I noticed Patrick Yard tell the workers they must go slow, they must think at first glance. I would say, Patrick, you're right, but Patrick, you are the leader. You must lead the workers. There is time for a general strike in the public service. The last time the public servants had to go on strike was 1999, and the PPP at that time was forced to set up a tribunal. Clive Thomas, my party leader, Dr. Armstrong, and the PPP had a man, I think it was Gobinganga or one of them. They set up that arbitration tribunal, and that tribunal made recommendations to the PPP for the public servants, which the PPP did not honor. To this day, it does not honor them. But the point is, this is not time for a trade union leader, in the face of the violence, the economic violence, to say to your people, to say to the members of your union, they must go slow. So you're telling them, you do what you want to do. No, you are the leader. And the public service union must go on strike. Withdraw your labor. Because if to them your labor means nothing, your labor means minus 7%, minus 10%, your labor means nothing. I'm in a Bob Marley mood to tonight. Didn't my people before me slave for this country? That's what Bob Marley asked. Didn't my people before me slave for this country? I build your cabin, I plant the corn. Did my people before me slave for this country? You look in my face with corn and eat up all my corn. And I must sit down because of my fear of violence enveloping our society. You are counting on that. You are banking on the fact that we are not a violent people. You know, the likes of black people are violent. If black people engage in violence, society, it was violence against the most violent institution in human history, slavery. We're not really violent people. If we were, given what they did to us for 400 years, we would have been violent 24/7. We are not a violent people. And we must not pretend that we're a violent people. And we must not allow people to pin violence on us. But we are a resistance people. And we must resist. We must defend ourselves. The unions must call out their workers. The time has come for the unions to call their workers out on strike. Withdraw your labor. And let's take it from there. Some of you are too young to remember. But in Linden, in the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s, when the unions didn't want to call strikes, the workers would call strikes. and force the union to endorse this strike. The Askrea group in Linden in the 60s and the early 70s called a series of strikes at the bauxite company. When the government of the day wanted to get the insurance money after nationalization to put it in something, the workers went on strike. It was called the Ryler strike. To the 1980s. 1983, a brother Leach dropped down on the job because in those days, you know, there was scarce food, items scarce. People had to got to work in the morning. They couldn't afford breakfast. And the workers went on strike and forced the union to endorse strike. 1980. Your unions don't want to take action. Workers have to organize themselves. And you have to look to new and alternative leaders to lead you. We cannot sit down anymore. Workers, this is the end of the rope. You can't get worse than this. These people have no shame. They give you 7% and tax it. You have no shame. They give you as a little frack. Then you no pay rent since 2019. Did my people before me slave for this country and continue to do so? Is our people who have to educate our children. And our teachers, when they walk into those classrooms, then get Indian and Black and Amerindian. They walk into that classroom and they give of their more than their lives. Sometimes neglecting their own children. When the teacher got to stay up, stay in class, stay till 5, 6 o'clock. They won't pick to the home and they're there educating our children, our nurses, our policemen and women. And you cannot compensate them. Even if you're giving a freck, you don't give them a big raise. No, we have reached the end of the rope. It is time for action. We have to balance our anti-violence position with a pro-resistance position. It's time to strike. It's time to strike. And I am also repeating my call to undermine the government. I said in August, and I'm saying it again, a leader doesn't have to tell you how to undermine the government. There are many ways. If you used to spend your little couple dollars shopping here, stop shop there, stop somewhere. Christmas will come. Only buy from Regent Street what you have to buy, what you can't get nowhere else, and what you definitely need. Because you know what? They were enablers and they are enablers. Undermine the government, continue to do so. Because it's your money that is spending on Regent Street. That is a stake. and give to the PPP as contribution for the election so they can get into government to beat you. You own money. Or people say you own cash money. When you go on Regent Street, or you go to somebody else's market, and you spend your money there, they take that money and they donate it to the PPP war machinery, war purse. Let's get real. There are some things we can't get in our community. There are also our people like to sell things there. Me a little boy, me auntie send me a shop, send me a market. Me take part of the money, me buy shave ice or wherever, me go to Miss Booker, because Miss Booker, then he's the mother, there's where me auntie used to say. And you charge 5 cents, Miss Booker make up she face, and she give you the thing. Me can't know me auntie and know me the charge 5 cents. That's when we selling things in we community, we want to sell there because we want to make all the profit today. So that then drive our consumers to go to the other market where they're going to sell them it little cheap. Never mind, is all kind of nonsense that they're putting in the plan them these days. But the point is, we got to change our ways. Our business people must be concerned just not of it, but they must be concerned of building a business community and a business network. You lose a couple $1,000 today because you carry your price down a little bit. You get it back tomorrow because your money is circulating in your community. Black people got to stop selling things there. And our consumers have to give and take. If you can get something in your village, when I get plenty manure inside, and you got to pay a couple $1,000 more to get a better quality squash or bora or okra, it's better than to go and buy the poison somewhere else. In any case, they don't say they want poison you. You're not being racist by sustaining yourself. The village economy has to be rebuilt. Undermine this government. Do not engage them when they come into your community with nonsense. It's a judge used to say, black man too licorice. Licorice. They come, they wave a couple $1,000, and we running behind them, crying bitter tears. Oh God, the opposition, the coalition, they don't be so bad. Thank God for the $10,000. We got to get off that nonsense. Because a lot of time we're doing it in order to trick the people. But when you trick them, you end up tricking yourself. Linda is saying there, do not purchase from the private sector, do not go to their malls, do not go to their markets and supermarkets in Georgetown. Buy only if it's a case of life and death that will cripple them. Simple. Thank you, Cookie. Thank you. You're going to go and get a degree. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's start. Stay off Regent Street, only buy food, please. We have to start somewhere. Sonette, thanks. Let's start. We have to lead. We have to do what we call self-activity and self-organization. And we start by doing what we can do on our own without leaders. Nobody ain't got to know that. Nobody ain't got to know it. The revolution will not be televised. When you undermine it, it's not televised. Undermine the economic partners of the PPP. Undermine. Those of you that take your children, waking them up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I send them far in them other community for lessons in the morning. They come out for afternoon, you send them there for lesson again. Send them to lesson in your own village. Soon it will be Christmas, but Christmas without them, yes. Hosea. We have to change some habits. I agree with you 100%, but how many of us are there that we can support? Well, that's what I'm saying. Insofar as we have entrepreneurs in our communities, support them. But the entrepreneurs, they have to know that they can't overcharge people. And now is the time for us to encourage entrepreneurship. It's a year plus now, we're saying boycott their business, but word on the street is our people are the ones flooding Giftland Mall. That's true. That's very true. And that is why we've got to start on these programs, encouraging that change of habit. We have to struggle. It's not just slam bam, thank you, sir, or thank you, ma'am. It's about organizing. It's about changing habits. In an ideal world, Africans should be supporting Indians in areas where Indians have the advantage, and Indians should be supporting Black people where Black people have the advantage. Where are the sugar workers who got $250,000? Where are the rice farmers who get $500,000? Where are their voices crying out that this is advantage you're taking on public servants? No. They're not giving us any solidarity. It may be out of fear, but it may be that they don't care. So we have got to start changing attitude. We must not be caught in this mess again. The PPP government has to go. It has to go. But it's not going to go tomorrow. It will go through sustained pressure. We must make it difficult for them to take advantage of us. See, some foolish people believe that our problem is with Indian people. The problem not with Indian people. the Gregory Catalani used to say, it's when that potty, hillbilly, white boy make policy. And I'm asking the same, since when the ordinary Indian person makes policy, they don't make policy. How can they be my enemy? They didn't decide to give me 7%. It's not the Indian lady in Annandale or Manripo who make the policy to give public servants 7%. They're not our enemies. The people who make the decision to give workers 7% are the leaders. And my politics is not against ordinary people. If Black people start taking advantage on Indian people tomorrow, I will be in the forefront to say, no, you are wrong. I have done it in my life, my political life, many times. You don't defend your enemies. I will defend Indian people and Indian people because they're not my enemies. But I will not defend the government. They have to go. And since our Indian brothers and sisters will not be in the forefront, it is we, the opposition, we, mainly Africans and the other ethnic groups who support the opposition, it is we who have to remove this government. It's no good. It's not me, it's just me saying that. Chris Ram saying that. De Silva saying that. Glenn Nall saying that. Alan Fenty saying that. Yuri is asking, Yuri comes from a famous family, the Westmus family. He's asking, are there any political leaders who are willing to ground with the ordinary Black people in the village? Yes, Yuri, look one sit down here. Look one sit down here. So even if it's one, and they're more than one or two. We don't get the publicity. We don't get the thanks. But yes, there are leaders, and there have always been leaders, Black leaders who go into the communities. From the time I set my boots in Guyana, before I get there, my party would organize community meetings for me to go to. So yes, there are Black leaders. We need more. You see, the leaders in the political parties, they would not want to be seen in Black communities ground in Yuri, and I guess they're the ones you're talking about. No. They wouldn't want to be. They wouldn't want to be seen doing that. So the Black party leaders are not going to do that kind of work, but to have leaders like myself. That's bread and butter for people like us. And that's what I'm saying. We have to develop different strategies, different leadership. We put too much of our faith in the party leaders. And the party leaders are showing that they have limitations. Every time a party leader come out and even condemn and use Black, even other party leaders will tell you this party is not Black. The PNC is the blackest party in Guyana. And it will say it's not a Black party. Blackest party. Is there an Indian running for leadership of the PNC? No. No. The highest profile elected Indian in the PNC was the treasurer. Amna Ali wasn't elected, but you can't call Amna Ali Indian. Amna Ali live like a black person. She's Indian. I'm sure she's conscious, but there's nothing Indian about Amna. So you can't even refer to Amna. The reason that you don't have Indians in the top leadership of the PNC is because the PNC is a black party. It's the blackest party in Guyana. And yet, despite that foolishness, we are a black party that is concerned about all races. And from the WPA, we are a party that is concerned about black people, but we do not believe in black supremacy. Simple. We are concerned about black people's issues, but we are not about black supremacy. We do not believe that black people are better than Indian people. And so we have to call on our leaders to do better. And if they don't do, we look for alternative leaders, alternative leadership. So the message is clear, sisters and brothers. The message is very clear. The PPP has declared war. It has declared war for the last 15 months. But this 7% is the end of the rope. Call on your leaders to take action. The workers need to go on strike. We got banned rebellion because when people go on strike, they need strike relief. And the rest of us have to be prepared to pitch in. We can't call for them to go on strike and just leave them on their own.
Never joke, never joke, never joke. Oh, money, never money, never money, never money, never money, money. Now know what you conniving money, money, never money, never money, money, never money, money. You can keep your conniving money when you've been a corrupt bum. In a bill there be money. Now because your money done, you come with conniving money. Then you had your pocket full. In a bill there be money. Now because your money done, you hustle for tell me money. Yes, money, never money, never money.
Morning, neighbor, morning. Morning, neighbor, morning. It's raining cats and dogs in Guyana. It is now 7 hours 42. Welcome to another program of BUXTONIAN Morning Time. I trust that you've had your fill already because Dr. Hines was spilling some facts. And I'm sure you people were paying attention. I hope you have paid attention so much so that that trip you had planned to go to Regent Street today, you decided you're going to cancel it. I hope you decided you will cancel it. Not because of the rain, but because you realize that the enablers of the PPP have big businesses on Regent Street. And when you support them, you're supporting this illegitimate cabal on what they are doing. Okay? It is the 8th day of December in the year 2021. And it's a very special day. Many of you may remember, many of you may not remember. But before we go into the program, let us say happy birthday to one of our favorite family members. Good morning to you and happy birthday, Rhonda Lane. This selection is for you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you, Rhonda. Rhonda Lane. Yes, happy birthday to you. You know, you're special when we at KAMSTV take 5 minutes out of our program time to say happy birthday to you. I don't think anybody else has had that privilege, Rhonda. Well, I do. Yes, it's Tuesday morning. It's Wednesday morning, as a matter of fact. It's 12 minutes to the 8 o'clock hour. I don't know, y'all must be wondering why this man commands so late. And so, well, you know, I deliberately allow that discussion by Dr. Hines to go on because it's important. There are so many bits and pieces of messages in there that you can't do it all at once. And so every morning you get to listen, and so you get to refresh your memory and so on and so forth. And let me tell you all this. Those of you who have been wondering, I've been informed that Ronaldine, I got something for you, girl. Must call me after the program. We got a bottle of GT wine for you. GT wine, it can gladden your heart. Must call me after the program. I got some stuff for you. Must call me. I'm begging you. Furthermore, it's not I'm begging you. I'm instructing you. Call me after the program. Yes. What we've been talking about, and don't forget, you know, big. Yes, there are lots of things for us to talk about this morning. Lots and lots of things. But I don't want to be doing a lot of talking. I want you to do the talking. And let's talk about local government. What does local government mean to you? That's a big question, because I know for a fact a lot of people pay scant regard to local government. As a matter of fact, even the politicians pay scant regard to local government. I like upset people by referring to the past. After the coalition won the elections in 2015, by 2016, 2017, 2018, which year? Shortly after winning the 2015 elections, local government elections were held by the Granger administration. Right? And instead of recognizing in 2018 that local government elections are important enough to pay attention to if you lost, especially if you lost. The coalition government basically said, it's local government elections. Right? What is important is that we won the regional and general elections. And so they paid scant regard to local government elections. Now I want you all to do this assessment for me. Because the coalition came to office in 2015. And in 2018, local government elections were held. 2018? I wonder if these dates are right. Yes, I think 2018. And if you're in government, Ron is reminding me 2016. If you're in government and you can't win local government elections, it says something is wrong. If you can't win 50% of the local government constituencies, it says something is wrong. And so if the politicians are taking local government elections seriously, seriously, they would have recognized that something was amiss, something was afoot in the electoral system, and they would have started to investigate and pinpoint the fact that the PPP had used the rigging machine in that local government election. They tested the rigging machine in that local government election, and they were able to perfect it for the national, the regional, and national regional elections. Right? But I'm saying to you, a lot of people don't pay attention to local government elections. They don't take it seriously. If the constituents don't take the local government elections seriously, if you were to look at the turnout of local government elections, you will recognize that they are always low, right? And they're usually low, especially for the party in power. So that election, that local government election, which saw the PPP winning about 65 or more than 60% of the local democratic councils. If you check, you will see the turnout in APNU AFC supporting areas was low, and that contributed to the defeat of the coalition. But one of the things I think we need to recognize is that local government elections should be placed among the most important elections in your country. As a matter of fact, if you ask me, it should be the most important. Because local government elections and the local democratic organs are what put you, the people, closest to government, closest to running, closest to managing your affairs. While it is difficult to walk into the office of the president or prime minister or minister of government, at least in this country, and to point out, well, this is not right in my community, that is not right in my community. It is much easier for you to walk into your village council, as a lot of people call it, your neighborhood democratic council's office, and demand to see the overseer and point out what is not right. Understand that? Local government, as it says, is intended to bring governance closer to the people. It is intended to have the people have an impact and input into those decisions which will be made locally and in further up the chain that will affect their lives and livelihood. And so, for me, local government is perhaps as important or more important as national governance. Because if you have a strong local government system and strong local government leaders, then they will impact what is done at the national level. Let me explain that to you. Your local democratic councils have responsibilities for things like garbage collection and maintaining of drainage and irrigation in your community and ensuring law and order in terms of building regulations and so on. Those are some of their responsibilities. And so when the council is not functioning, your streets, your drains are clogged, you get easy flooding, you get no or little garbage collection and other services, you get no representation at the national level or the regional level when local government is not functioning. We have discussed here, for example, Dharamlal taking subvention, which were supposed subventions allocated to the varying neighborhood democratic councils across the country, and spending it from the ministry without consultation with the NDCs. And that can only happen when you have weak local government institutions, weak NDCs. How do you get weak NDCs? When the councillors who are elected are not representative of their neighborhoods, but they're representative of political parties' interests. And so when the PPP is in government, the councils which are controlled by PPP supporting councillors, central government or Freedom House dictates what happens in those councils. It's no longer a local democratic situation where the local councillors sit and they make decisions based on the input of the people. The same can be argued when the APNU is in government. The APNU might have been more hands-off. But that is not to say that they did not impact what was happening at the councils. Their impact at the councils might have been more positive, I can tell you, because I know Ronald Balkan, who was the Minister of Local Government at the time, had a totally hands-off position. He said the councils are supposed to govern. The city council, municipal and local government, NDC councils, let them govern, let them do their work. And he had that hands-off approach. But if you look at the PPP of past and the PPP of present, their approach has always been hands-on. Right? Their approach has always been hands-on, dictating what councils must do. And in places where they couldn't control the councils in the past, what they did under the hand of the minister was to dismantle those councils and install interim management councils, IMCs. And if you reflect on your history, you will remember the chaos which obtained in this country under all the interim management councils or committees, IMCs. Here it is in 2021. The PPP is back in office. And we have a postponement of local government elections which were due this year. And the postponement doesn't name a definite date for local government elections. This is an indefinite postponement. According to the laws, I think every 3 months or so, the minister can go to Parliament and move for another suspension of the elections under the guise of GCOM not being ready. Well, we know why GCOM is not ready. The PPP said they weren't going to go to elections with the current infrastructure at GCOM. Right? The secretariat, until they could fix the secretariat, they will not go to another elections. And so fixing the secretariat means putting people in place to ensure that the PPP has its way. Just as how removing the CEO and the DCEO and others is to ensure that they replace them with people friendly to the PPP. And you see where that is happening. You see where that is going. Good? But I am, like I like to say, I'm going to bet you that this issue of a postponed local government election is going to get little or no attention whatsoever from the big political players, because they don't see local government elections as important as national elections. As a matter of fact, they don't even see local government elections as important as elections coming up for PNC Congress. So all of that, local government election can take the back burner to all of that. And I dare argue that even after Congress, for example, you're not going to hear much about local government elections. Because what happens at the local democratic level affects the greater part, for the greater part, the people in the regular communities, let me call it that. People in gated communities, they have their arrangements for sanitation and delivery of services and so on. And most of the well-to-do in this society, big shot if you want to call them, politicians and so on, a whole lot of them live in gated communities. So they're not concerned about what is happening at the NDC level. It is the citizens who have to pay attention to what is happening at the NDC level. It is the citizens who must agitate for local government elections. Because when you have councillors who are not functioning, you feel the brunt. You see this image I have up there? This is a trench, a drainage canal in the Buxton Falls NDC in 2021. The cleaning and maintenance of these canals are not controlled by the NDCs, but they're controlled by the regional administration, which is controlled by the government, in short. Right? So the NDCs don't have the necessary resources and so on. They oversee can walk around and say, hey, this trench needs cleaning. Let's issue a tender for it to be cleaned. Tenders for the cleaning and maintenance of canals in every NDC are controlled by the RDCs. Okay? They're controlled by the RDCs. And this is another issue with local government here. When the RDCs control the tenders for the cleaning and maintaining of these canals, they're robbing people who live in the NDCs the opportunity to earn from these contracts. In many instances, you can find outsiders winning contracts to maintain drainage and irrigation canals in areas where they do not necessarily live. Right? And so what you can end up with is people just doing a contract and not concerning how well it is done, because at the end of the day, it will not affect them. They do the contract, they get paid, and they go about their business. But when residents get to do it, the possibility is, as we like to say, the conscience gonna guide them that we gotta do it good because it concerns us. So these are some of the shortcomings of the system currently. Good? When you have, I know, the Buxton Falls NDC is controlled by the PPP because they won it at the last election. And when that council sits to determine where development takes place, and I dare anyone to challenge me when I say it, the decisions are so skewed that more development takes place to the east, where the Indian populated villages are, than it takes place to the west, or it takes place where the local democratic office is located, because the local democratic office is located in Friendship, Buxton. And so when Darmlad spent the money to buy Cusheron, all of the Cusheron was used in Enterprise and Traspy. Not 1 ounce, not a stone, not a pebble was used in Buxton. When the PPP decided we were going to give more money for this community enhancement program, I think they call it a SIP program. I think they gave $1 million or more, having come to office immediately after. They gave to the Buxton Falls NDC at least $1 million to employ people for the SIP program, CIIP. The instructions were that money is to be used specifically in enterprise, and the people who are to be employed must come from enterprise. And that is what you get when local government is not functioning the way it ought to, when local government has autonomy and is not directed to by central government. This council is controlled by the PPP. And so all of the focus is on areas, communities where the PPP support comes from. Just like in the National Assembly, the coalition councillors are in the minority. And so instead of fighting, or fighting up as we like to say, I guess in many instances they sit and allow these things to pass. The community is not engaged to be made aware of what is happening. And so a lot is allowed to happen. The things that a lot is allowed to happen. Let me leave it as that. Without any resistance from residents, right? Or people living in the neighborhood. And so I'm saying again, it is absolutely important that citizens start to pay attention to local governance and agitate for the holding of local government elections as soon as possible. Right? Don't let us sit and accept this postponement, indefinite postponement. The people must demand from this cabal and GCOM a date by which local government elections will be held. And take it seriously enough that they can get rid of the dead weights at their local democratic organs and put people who will defend and represent their interests. My encouragement to each of you is to start organizing in your neighborhoods, neighborhood action groups or whatever you want to call them, to not only demand that local government elections be held in a timely manner, but also to contest those elections so you can have control of what is happening in your neighborhood. And like I always say, if you don't know how to do it, drop me a message on 6225933 and Dr. Hines is going to be here and we are going to do what we normally do. We will come and sit with you and we will work it out. What are the things you need to do in preparation for what you want? The local government laws right now allow for you to have another tier of local governance called the village councils. Originally, the village councils were removed and replaced by the NDCs. But there is now a hybrid system where you can have an NDC, but you can still have a village council. And you can petition the government, petition the National Assembly, petition for your community to have a village council. And so if you do that, you give yourself more control over what happens in your community. And that is one of the ways we must go, because we recognize that the neighborhood democratic councils are not working for us. And so we can move and start moving to have re-established in our communities village councils, which will work along with the NDCs. There's no question about that. You will have to work along with, but you will have a bigger say and more control over what happens. Good? Those are some of the things that you have to start to think about and act on. I know y'all talking about Christmas. Dr. Hines like to say you lose 2 weeks before Christmas and 2 weeks after Christmas. You lose an entire month. I want to say to you that the best gift you can give yourself is the gift of organization in this season. We don't need to lose 2 weeks before and 2 weeks after. Those of us who observe, we observe the day and we move on. Because there is a lot of work to be done out there. And that's my encouragement to you. Look at the video as it rolls. This is just about 2 minutes of video again of the Buxton Falls. Some things worth highlighting in the Buxton Falls area. And these things exist when local government doesn't function, or when central government takes control of local government. And that is what has been happening in this country. There's a constant battle to take control of City Hall. And all the NDCs, there's a constant battle to subjugate them. And all the IDCs, there's a constant battle to subjugate them. And so far, quite frankly, if you ask me, the PPP seems to be winning. Because there is no real pushback. And when they win, what they do? They discriminate. If you're black, stand back. Your community will be left for last. If ever, it will be attended to. Those communities which are favorable to us are the ones we will pour the resources into, despite the fact that some of those resources are coming off of your tax dollars. And so people wake up. It's 8 hours 40. And I want to open up the lines. Like I said, I expect you to do most of the talking. I want you to, if possible, send me WhatsApp videos of what's happening in your neighborhood right now following the rains. Yesterday I went to Georgetown. I was dodging potholes in Georgetown in 2021. I noticed a lot of places flooded out in Georgetown in 2021. Places that used to be dry not so long ago. Now this morning I was reflecting, there are two things which go hand in hand with the PPP. Floods and fires. Right? Floods and fires. Once you have a PPP government, you get lots of flood and fires. I wonder why. Call and send me those videos and let's talk about what's happening in your neighborhood and local government and whatever else you wish for us to talk about this morning. First voice note for the morning.
Morning, Brother Kadaki. I hope our African brothers and sisters who are selling, who have businesses, that they are hearing what Dr. Hines is saying about their prices, also their attitudes when you go to their stalls. So many of them all tell you, oh, you can't touch that, or I can't change that if it is bad. And this is not the way to do business. If your prices, as Dr. Hines says, your prices one day is $1,000 and it's not selling, drop your price.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll have to play back that one. Call Live, good morning. It got caught by mistake. Call Live, good morning.
Yeah, Mr. Kadaki, good morning. I listened to two of the programs last night. One with the coalition and one with the government about the situation with Mr. Jordan, right? Don't get me wrong, I'm not a political man. I'm a Guyanese listening and learning, right? First one I listened to was Mr. Nandalal. Mr. Nandalal said about Mr. Jordan, I'm not saying Mr. Jordan is supposed to be arrested and get handcuffed and all these kind of stuff. There's a piece of property in Georgetown that Mr. Nandalal said before last night, it was leased by the PDP. And so, Bossman was supposed to develop it, do all kind of nice things. He never do it. He never paid the lease. Larry said the lease was $500 a month. He never paid for 5 years. And he's in court for that situation on a civil matter. I'm a Guyanese. I get a piece of land from the government. and I had to pay 3 installments before I get a title from a property. 3 installments. And every other Guyanese who went to housing and get house flat, so we get this one, we pay cash, we can't. Mr. Jordan, as the finance minister, Mr. Nandalal said last night, and these are things I think if we talk in politics and we just skin up all of them, you understand? You have to back check things. Mr. Nandalal said that in his, he looking after the civil matter, and in his paperwork, as not a lawyer, at least that's a read between the lines. In his paperwork, he seen nothing come out of cabinet. So that means Mr. Jordan had to do it with me and I listened to the coalition boss man talking, and nobody speaking about this guy who getting all the benefits. Guyanese ain't get no benefit. A piece of property like that could never sell for $200 million Guyana dollars or $500 million Guyana dollars. No way.
Stop, caller. I think you've had enough time to speak. Let me speak now.
Okay, go ahead.
There's a saying that so long as the hunted doesn't tell the story, the hunter will always be the victor. You know that saying?
Yeah.
Good.
I'm listening.
So you telling me what Anil Nadlal says is telling me that Anil will say what he has to say to justify his position. Right? You telling me what the coalition says is telling me that the coalition will say what it has to say to justify its position. And that is why there is something called a court of law and there is something called evidence. Right?
Exactly.
And I am saying that the evidence exists. That the arrangement which allowed BK to get mud flat in Kingston, the wharf, that is what the area is called, mud flat. Okay? The evidence which exists is that the PPP entered into an arrangement with BK Tiwari because at the time he was one of their favored boys. To lease him mud flat with the ultimate aim of him buying it. As I like to say, it's lease to own. It's like a mortgage. You pay a lease for so many years, and then we're going to sell it to you. Okay?
Right.
That agreement is there. That agreement is there. The PPP reneged. They reneged on the agreement, and they ended up in court. It is the court, and if Nandla says he ain't seen no cabinet decision, let him check the court decision that recommended that they make a settlement.
Right, okay.
And based on that recommendation, as I understand it, the issue was taken to cabinet. Cabinet members had their say, and the president. They like to argue that the president is a supreme authority, wherever he says must go. And so my understanding is the president said, go ahead and settle. And the settlement was to sell BK the property. Now, how do you hold Mr. Jordan responsible for simply executing an instruction from his boss? And we have had many of these instances where former PPP people argue that they were simply carrying out cabinet decisions and instructions given to them by the president. How is this instance with Mr. Jordan different? Because he black?
Exactly. But listen what I'm saying. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a politician. I'm a listener because I'm a Guyanese and I'm a deportee and I got four youngsters in this country, Guyanese kids, and I like them to benefit.
And if we're talking about value, caller, if we're talking about value, right? Look across this country. All of the folks, or most of the folks, who got a better part of the resources of this nation in their control, under their control, they ain't pay the value for it. Jagio and all of them will live in Pradoville. Pradoville too. The oldest Paranam front, which belonged to the people of Pleasance, got it for pennies to the dollar. Pennies to the
I
dollar.
would agree with you.
Less than half of the price that poor people were paying per acre of land, they got it for. Part 1, part 2. Right?
I would agree with you. My brother come from America when that problem hit the world, hit the country. When that Prattville hit the country, and he asked me to take him to Prattville. And I can't remember the exact numbers itself or whatever. And I took him there, and you look at the piece of property. The property, the part where it wasn't developed was like a swimming pool, a big ditch, right? Anyway, and he said to me, he said, this is what these people are getting up, right? Okay. And they call it seaside property and all these kind of things. But well, that's another thing we could talk about.
Okay, Carl, thank you for your time.
Mr. Nandalal said, give me a little more hearing. Mr. Nandalal, to the viewers could listen and think. Mr. Nandalal said, Mr. Jordan, I'm not picking up for Nandalal, don't get me wrong. Good. I will convict. I've been in front of judges.
Carl, get to the point.
Right. The point is, Mr. Nandalal said that this deal was done with BK, right, Bossman, after the coalition, after the no confidence motion, right? And another thing, listen to this talking last night with on the coalition website. They had all these guys, right? And the leader for the AFC, he is saying nothing. And trust me, boss, trust me, if the coalition, if the AFC didn't know that could be back from Barbies, the turning from PNC, something wrong with them. Something wrong with them. Something wrong with PNC.
Carlo, thank you for your time.
Because I've been from the street, and the talk, I used to deal with a lot of people. In the talk was on the street, that man got somebody for putting no coffee food. The one when they go again by the filing, they go no confidence motion, and PNC leader staff said, bring it on. If the word was on the street, there was somebody for doing it.
Thank you, Carlo.
You're welcome.
Let's talk. The lines are open. As people want to talk about value, who got what under which government. The Barjagdio government gave to Bobby Ramroop, the other GPC, and I think what you call it, Guyana National Printers or something. The other GPC where right now they're operating Guyana Times out of and all of these entities that Bobby Ramroop got for next to nothing. It even included a well that belonged to the people. A well that belonged to the guy who was in that compound. Good? So I don't understand. Sometimes we are very myopic or sometimes we play blind. Until the story is told by the hunted, the hunter will always be the victor. You know when the hunters got killed by lions that they hunted? But they either never lived to tell the tale or they always tell it a different way. They were the victors because they were left alive. Call your life, good morning.
Morning to you, sir. And good morning to you as well. Just two contributions on the local government and the 7%. Now, first one on the local government issue. Now, if politicians are not interested in local government, right, or more so the opposition side, if the answer is simple, they're not interested in the people. Now, if you're not interested in local government, then you're not interested in the people in the community, you're not interested in the people in the village. So there is an easy one for people to understand is that if you have politicians who are not least concerned and least interested in local government situation, or local government elections, or local government authorities, they're not interested in the people in the village and in the community and the small man. Right? So the Guyanese people or the average Guyanese or the average person that should be an easy test for them to judge the politicians. Because if you're not interested in the local government, don't mean you're interested in me. Now, in terms of this minister, that I am confused with this law that they changed with this local government. I thought that when they bring in this local government commission, there was so much issue over this local government commission. And when this local government commission come into being, I thought the minister Paul would have cut big. But it seems to me, with all this local government commission we have, the minister of local government still have ultimate power over all these local authorities. So he by himself, one green man to just decide. I mean, I know the election will be postponed because of the situation this year with GCOM. But in my estimation, that shouldn't be the work of a minister. The minister any day to wake up and say, well, election tomorrow or election postponed. That shouldn't be the work of the minister, one green man. Right? So this is my take on it. But I think the government caught the opposition really sleeping. And let me tell you, this local government is the PVP is going to push hard for as long as possible for them to have no local government election because they will control the system just as is. They don't mind the one to NDCs that the coalition is controlling. Because the NDCs that the actual coalition is controlling, or that they want, the PVP is still running shots in those areas. For example, the big city, the PVP is suffocating the city big time and having their way how they want this to do in Johnson and in Region 4. So it doesn't matter to PVP and PVP that the coalition with the Region 4 because the coalition having no headway with Region 4 or with the capital city. So they're being in the chair, it doesn't make no sense. So they don't mind that this local government election does not stretch out for as long as possible. So I don't think we'll even see that here, local government election. Now, on the issue of this 7%, now you know the union leaders and the politicians, you being kind of we like to sugarcoat our comments when we talk about the opposition. I listen to when Jack, you and Nanda are talking, and they just say it as it is when they're speaking about the opposition. The opposition don't return the favor. For example, when they're talking about the inequities in the society, you really use statements like, oh, well, they do such to the black, to other people and to other people. Is either black people in your people or among your people? You will use this other people and some people and a section of the society and all these manner of things that they use in their statement. Try to sound neat and decent. Anyway, the workers in this country, the public servants, first of all, I think the government see the public servants as slaves. This is my honest opinion. I think they see the public servants, the military, the teachers, the nurses as slaves in Ghana. They see us as slaves to work for them, the business people and the government. This is number one. And the government and the opposition and the union leaders and the opposition and these people who support public servants should tell the government that, tell them that you see the public servants as slaves. Don't sugarcoat the thing and try to deep up their conversation. Talk frankly, let them know how you feel and how you see it. Now, these fancy statements is not going to move the PDP. The public servants in this country, and I am saying that the word public servant should come out of the public sector employees. The word servant should be removed. You have to find some other name for workers who work for the government. Civil servant, not servant, but public employees. Some other name, but this word servant has really destroyed the and this is why people see the public servants as slaves because of the word servant. So for where people is concerned, they just see the government workers as people who when they go in there to do this, service them for next to nothing. Now, the unions, all these unions are dead. They're very dead. And for the public servants, they need to get rid or come out of these unions. These unions are doing nothing. These unions are just there for gratifying their own self. They need to get rid of these unions. And Patrick had to be there for what 20. If I say I know myself in the 90s, Patrick had in the presence of GPS. These people are dead meat. Dead meat. All they have to do is sell another press conference with a piece of paper statement, and they're good. All year you want. I know since the budget read, you know that the government is going to cover an increase in the not April, but July month. And you will see nothing going on. Everybody know, and for next year, 2022, let's say to them, if they say to them, that 2022, the government will not change until they beat resistance. I am saying, and then they tell the workers should go sue by themselves. That tells you the workers should take their own action. Come out to the union, stop paying the dues, don't need the union left nothing. Because they're still dead. They're still dead. The workers, all workers in Guyana, the teachers, the nurses, and the public sector employees should come out of the unions and find some other way to make their presence felt with the government. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Lines remain open. 6225933 is the number to call. The voice note. Voice note.
Good morning, Mr. Amsterdam. I would like to take this opportunity to call on the PNC executive and all the members that need to call off Congress and all of them who running for leader come together as one and deal with this runaway train regime that we have called a government, because these people are getting out of place, are getting out of order. And we need to put a spoke in the wheel.
Caller live, good morning. Caller live, good morning.
Hi, good morning, Kadaki. Blessings to you and your very valued listener. I was compelled to call this morning because, and I want to specifically address 2 callers ago, the gentleman that spoke about Mr. Nandalal. And sometimes it's important for us to call each other in order to call each other out. I am fully aghast at his sentiments, respectfully coming on the program this morning to actually validate anything that Anil Nandalal has to say in reference to any Guyanese in Guyana. Okay? We know Nandalal has been alleged to have been a murderer, allegedly. We also know that Nandalal has allegedly stolen the law books that is the property of Guyana. So for any of us to be able to legitimize or to actually take Nandalal's quotes or anything pertaining to his words and to be able to validate it in reference to especially Mr. Jordan, there is something wrong with our mentality as Black folks, some of us. Because if you don't come in this program and address the ills of what Nandalal has done, the fact that they've taken property and devalued it and be able to purchase it, you reference Pradersville and so many other places. Nandalal should not be dignified in any way to be able for anybody to come in this program, and I don't care who it is, to be saying anything about, to reference him in any legitimate way. Well, Mr. Nandalal said that. Until we don't address Nandalal and all of his ills and all of the allegations behind his name, and in using the arm of and the power of governance in Guyana to abuse citizens, be it Black folks, African folks, Indian folks, whatever, he should not be anywhere legitimized on any call in reference to anything about someone else. And so we have got to be able to stop always calling us out without the empirical facts and the information. We are just good at being able to weaponize the words of our oppressors against each other. And to me, it's damning, it's telling, it is sad. We must get out of the mentality of what brought us as slaves from Africa, because it was folks like Nandalal in the white Caucasian version that when they went to Africa, they were able to convince folks like this caller to say, oh, this person should be actually enslaved and should get on the slave ship. We must stop this nonsense. So I am, and I'm very respectfully and passionate about what the brother said. Don't you come on this program or any other programs, brother, and address somebody like a Nandalal, legitimizing who the hell he is when we know exactly who he is and what he's been doing to our brothers and sisters. Until then, Nandalal doesn't matter in any conversation when it comes to somebody like a Mr. Jordan or any African Guyanese. Have a blessed day. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Lines remain open 6225933. Voice note.
Good morning, Kodaki. I would like to take this opportunity to wish Wanda a
Call all the
happy
line.
birthday and may she live to see many more birthdays. Have a blessed day, Wanda.
Call A Live, good morning.
Hi, good morning, sir. Okay.
Caller, good morning, you live.
Yes, Mr. Amsterdam. Good morning, bless. Good morning to everyone else. I have a few topics. A few topics I want to talk about this morning.
So long as it doesn't take up the rest of the program.
No, it's not going to be the entire program. Sorry for that. First of all, I would like to stray a little bit off the topic this morning. First of all, I'd like to talk about Dr. Hines' program recently that he had a bunch of attorneys on his panel, including Mr. Ram. He's an attorney / accountant. First of all, I've known Mr. Ram for a while, and I know he's an elitist. And the thing is that this dude has been all out of his way trying to indirectly defend the present regime and demonize the coalition and its supporters, and by extension, most black folks. He's spoken about the dude from New York, Rickford. I forgot what was his second name. And I'm very glad that Mr. Rickford went on at the end of the show to make his point about what he was saying. The thing is that Mr. Ram refused to accept the fact what the PP has done and is doing. Right? He's kind of talking things slightly, sometimes not exactly against them, but he's saying a few things that maybe that we can all see that they're doing wrong. But he's still trying to combat on bashing the opposition supporters. So I really do think that it shows the length of the length of unprofessionalism on his behalf, right? And how racist and elitist he is. What a racist and elitist he is. That's Mr. Ram. Okay, and we're getting to this morning's program now. First of all, about the part of the 1 or 2. These people are so the PEP. They are so greedy. That they could have easily when they first of all when they were giving out land to themselves and their family in part of it, both 1 or 2, they could have said they're going to call the coalition and invite them as top politicians, as leaders, right, of the other side of the country, and just call them like the Mr. Granger, Mr. Harmon, who was in government then. And not in government, in opposition. Other opposition leaders, they could have called them and say, okay, we can do this for these lands here, we can share it out, we can give it out to ministers and top opposition leaders and so on, and also try to give them pieces. But instead of doing that, they give it to themselves and their friends. That is how greedy they are. And in regards to Mr. Jordan, right, the way Mr. Jordan was treated recently, that also shows how unprofessional and racist and bad these people are, because they treat a qualified public servant who has worked in several administrations, including their administration, including when Mr. Jaggio was finance minister, junior and senior finance minister. The dude who ran the budget section, who helped them a lot and they're treating this with, and they know it's wrong that they enter into an agreement with one of the supporters, one of the previous supporters actually, Mr. Tiwari, and all Mr. Jordan did is honor the agreement that they had with this supporter of their old supporter that maybe they got wrong with now. So I know they're trying to embarrass him, put him in prison, deny him medical help and all these things. So it's getting so much worse, and I really do think that something should happen. Something should happen with this, and it should start with the populace, because we can't wait on the opposition politicians for anything, because it seems like they're weak, or maybe they're doing what they're doing on their side, on the other side, but we do not know what they're doing. But the PR people, they're not doing a good job. So maybe that's why I think maybe we need to stand up and start fighting for what is right. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time.
The lines remain open. Let me inform you that according to one of my sources, BK first laid his hand on Mudflat in 2006. Who was in government in 2006? Right? So since 2006, BK entered into an arrangement with the PPP to get Mudflat, to use lease to own, as far as I call it. Call your life. Good morning, birthday girl. Happy birthday to you.
Thanks to Daki and to all the viewers and the listening and the watching public for your warm birthday greetings. I will make contact with you later. But coming back to the thing that is on the table, I agree with the caller many calls ago who spoke about the caller who was trying to give Nandalal a good word. Nandalal cannot talk about Minister Jordan. The next thing he tried to say, that the government had no form in the type of disrespect and unlawful treatment to Minister Jordan. That came from the pen of the government. Number two, the Africans are here or were here. And this man who hates black people, Africans, Barra Jagdio, he was in the Africans' face all the time, trying to show that he loved black people. He is only succumbing to the black people because he wants to get what belongs to us. And those people out there must understand the nature of the PPP government. The PPP government has nothing good for Africans. Now the thing with BK, once you attack the PPP government, they try to get rid of you. Whether you're Africans or you're from their own bloodlines, could be like them, they try to get rid of you. And that is what they are trying to do to BK. Because BK sat with them and realized who they are, they decided to do what they're doing. Now I'm on a campaign, and I'll owe you some pictures, by the way, about the community center. I've called other members. I even told them about what happened in Buxton. One of them didn't believe me. So we are trying to see that that does not take place in the Hampstead. We did our offense like how you did your offense, and we will not be giving up zinc for training, because we will not be able to host any type of paying activity in the ground, and we need that kind of exchange. The other things that pass, I know there's a way forward. And the time that the PPP is doing with it, I think they should come out and try to put the foot down. Local government is a government that assists the community. And without proper local governments, the country as a whole cannot move, because if you got this harmony in the local government, that will spill over into the big government. So this thing what they are trying to do to suppress this election, it's going to prove bad. Because when the life of our organization runs out, chaos does take over. And what you say there, they are trying to do a lot of work. So don't dig trench when rain falling. The only thing what has happened, the mud becomes soft. You got to dig trenches in the dry weather. Because when you dig trenches in the dry weather, you will see the depth of the trench and know what you're doing. But when you plunge a high mark bucket into a trench that is overtopping, you're bringing up 9% of the bucket as water, and you're getting 1% as scum. So you ain't cleaning the trench. So when the rain done, you got a shallow trench, and it cannot take the water off. So what this government is doing, the Instar regime, is destroying Guyana more. Last but not least, according to some fishermen, they claim that there is an oil spill. I don't know how true it is. Because they see little oil floating around and they can't catch fish. Well, tell yourself, we can't buy fish. Like how we can't buy oil, sugar, and rice plant flour in the government market. So that is my take, and I'll call you later. Thanks to all of you wonderful people for missing me, giving me all these great birthday wishes. And I pray that I continue to live to your expectations. I pray that in my new year of 61, because I am 61 today, that I could bring more knowledge. And when I'm not knowledgeable and I'm being corrected, I take it in grace. Because criticism is good. It nurtures you and it takes you along. So to all of you wonderful people all over the world, according to Sharon, thanks for your greetings and thanks for acknowledging me. God bless you too. And I will try to enjoy my birthday to the best. Because I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Rando.
All right, bye-bye.
Voice notes.
A few additional points, Kadaki, and I'm in a more calmer version, because it's important to be passionate, and it's also to use a position to educate my brothers and sisters. We must remember the premise of why Nandalal has been trying, Nandalal air fraud as well as Barjagdio has been trying to attack Mr. Jordan. Let us always keep in mind the genesis of exactly the modus operandi of the PPP. Because what they are actually stating of what Mr. Jordan has done or has not done is not the real issue. What underscores the issue is that Mr. Jordan has been a voice. He has actually been a stalwart to be able to illuminate and to be able to publicly criticize and educate our people about what is actually taking place from the financial perspective of this installed government. So when someone like a Nandalal comes out and is echoing anything about Mr. Jordan, we must understand where it is coming from and why it is happening. We got to understand the what, the where, the why, and the how. And so the why is because Mr. Jordan has been publicly speaking out against the government. And so our own people must always know. Additionally, let me make this other point. Mr. Nandalal, as a matter of fact, let me take away the Mr. from this man's name. He has been alleged to actually to be known as potentially and allegedly the person that has known information about the reason of Mr. Crummy Wing's death. And let me lastly say, let us not forget my brother that I grew up with, Mr. Rickford Burke in New York, that has been speaking out against the PPP, as Nandalal had the gumption and the temerity to go to New York in Queens of the Roti district of the Indians, of their supporters, and publicly threatened my brother Rickford Burke. Okay? And so that is who Nandalal is. Okay? That is who Nandalal is. So let us not ever come forward to any program stating Nandalal says or legitimizing Nandalal. Let us not ever do that again. And hopefully my dear brother that I am rebuking, I'm calling in order to call out, will be able to assess the genesis of things when it comes to Nandalal. So this may be a learning opportunity for him. Thank you, Kadaki. Have a blessed day.
Caller, live. Good morning. Caller, 1 minute. Go ahead.
Yes, I want to say publicly to that person with the voice note that's saying that we should call off Congress. I don't know if they plant her or whoever or who he or she is. I don't know if they plant them there, but Congress must not call off. Why we want to call off Congress? Now we have a black leader who wants to do something for our people, and she's saying that we should call off Congress and come together on all these things. We need a leader, and we need a good leader. So I think that we should not call off Congress, right? And we have to know that we got to be serious about this Congress. We have to be serious about getting a serious leader who would stand up for our people.
Okay, caller.
That's my.
Thank you. I early in the program I said I have been informed, and I didn't continue. Well, let me tell you what I've been informed. That Congress is on Saturday. Is it Saturday the 11th? Right? Congress is on Saturday. There have been a lot of talk of Congress being cancelled and postponed and so on. My information is that Congress is on Saturday. Caller, your live. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Kadaki. Good morning to all the people around the world who listen. Happy birthday to Rhonda. Hope she lives to see many more. And God always bless her. And she wonderful voice that she have. Every morning she talk, Pauline. You know? Next thing with, I got to say something. With Mr. BK and them, the whole of them. In 2006, when all of them were there with the PPP and all kind of thing. All right? I don't sorry for what happened to them. I know people might say I think I don't care what with them because the whole of them is a bunch of feathers stick together and them corrupted. You understand me? And this other guy too that what was the speaker for the house? What your name? Assist me. He used to live in Canada. Just go to the parliament in no close when was the election.
Schumann.
His name? I can't remember his name.
Schumann.
Yeah.
Schumann.
Yeah.
Schumann.
I don't serve. Yes. I don't serve for none of them. You know why? When was the election? The whole of them with the PPP would get EP and give them out of office. All right? They're out of office now. You see what they're doing them? And the whole of them writing letter and all kind of thing around the Caribbean and all kind of thing they do. All right? And Schumann and them, I don't sorry for them what happened to them. They got a lot more to reach it with the PPP. And they ain't sorry for none of them. What happened to them is good. That's my take for this morning.
Thank you, caller. Voice note.
A pleasant good morning to the BUXTONIAN morning show and to all of the listeners out there. What can I start by saying? This morning I feel, I don't want to say a little depressed, but it seems like our leaders, the opposition leader, I am addressing them this morning. They're going on these talk shows and they're just talking and talking and talking. And so much of terrible things the PPP is going on with. And we haven't seen them pushing back or doing anything to, like the previous caller said, to put a spoke in the wheel. None of that is not happening. There's a lot of chaos going on within the PNC, from Granger, Harmon, right down to all of these MPs. They're all lame ducks. I think Aubrey Norton is time, buddy. Break away from these guys. Join the WPA. Call Nigel Hughes. Call Nigel London. Form something different, man. That is going to work better for the people of Guyana. But once you got Harmon and Granger and all these MPs were deputy, we wasting time. Every day the people them, the PPP is pressing the neck into black people. Pressing the knees into black people's neck every day. Things is getting from bad to worse. Even myself knows it. Why can't they see that is what is happening? The Kashif and Shanghai, they got a tournament coming up. All they're doing when I used to live in Linden, all they did was just come through a football tournament, collect the money, and gone. They haven't developed any communities in Linden. Any communities. They haven't given back anything. Now, we're going to see if they're going to keep a tournament at the Buxton ground there now. We're going to see. These guys are just waste, man. Waste. Waste for black people. The Guyanese community calling on y'all. Get up and fight this fight now. Don't wait. Don't wait for the PNC.
Thank you for that voice note. There are a number of things I want to share with you. There are other voice notes and there. The lines will be reopening shortly. Just give me a few minutes. Starbuck News. In April of 2020, reported, NISIL says land sale to BK above board. Lincoln Lewis said the coalition completed what the PPP started. It's a long read, but I'll read it. You know why I'll read it? It is Starbuck News. They help to effect regime change. The Water Street Georgetown property sold to BK International days before the election had been won through a bid by the company over a decade ago, but was subsequently tied up in a court battle and resolved since 2017. The National Industrial and Commercial Investment Limited, NISIL, said their claims were backed up by former privatization board member Lincoln Lewis, who told Starbuck News, what the coalition government has done is complete what the PPP government started, but for whatever reason failed to do in moving to give legal transfer to the owner. On Wednesday, Starbuck News reported that less than a week before the March 2nd elections, Minister of Finance Winston Jordan granted permission for a number of state assets to be sold, including the 2.5 acres of prime land at Modlot, Commingsburg, Georgetown, to BK International, despite government having a caretaker status at the time. In response, NISIL on Thursday said that it became the owner of Modlots 1 and 2, Commingsburg, Georgetown, via transport number 530 of 1947, Lot F, a portion of Modlot Lot 3, and Lots A, B, and D portions of North Commingsburg, Georgetown, through vesting order number 43 of 2003 and 42 of 2003. On December 4, 2006, a lease agreement was entered into between NISIL and BK for a period of 20 years with an option to purchase anytime during the lease period. The purchase price was set at 110 million Ghana dollars. The option to purchase was contingent on the lessee obtaining approval from the mayor and city council for its intended construction works. This agreement was signed by former head of NISIL, Winston Brassington, and BK Inc., and witnessed by Marcia Nadir Sharma, NISIL explained in a press release. On November 19, 2009, BK Inc. exercised its option to purchase and cease paying rent. NISIL rejected the offer to purchase. In June 2013, NISIL began legal proceedings against BK to recover the outstanding rent and the accrued interest. This matter engaged the attention of the court from 2013 to 2017. Sometime during 2017, BK submitted an amended offer. In August 2017, the matter was set down by the court pending settlement. In October 2017, NISIL made a counteroffer to BK that included the original purchase price, all outstanding rent, and 50% of the accrued interest. BK accepted the counteroffer. It added. I can go on and on and on and on, but that's, for me, a synopsis of that issue there. As far as I know, right? Once a counteroffer has been accepted and the other terms and conditions of a contract are in place, it's legally binding. I don't know, y'all could teach me, right? The lawyers could tell me differently, but that's what I think I know. I did commercial law. Desperate attempt to tarnish government, BK told the Ghana Chronicle. This article was on April 3rd, 2020. Transaction for Kingston property acquisition started under PPP. Known critics of the government have been called out for seeking to create controversy where none such exists in the recent transfer of property by the government to BK Marine Inc., owned by Brian Tiwari. An order gazetted March 28, 2020, made its rounds on Facebook and later in the media, where the government was accused of selling prime waterfront property to BK on February 26, just days before the March 2 general and regional elections. The order was signed by Finance Minister Winston Jordan and saw the title of the immovable property of NISIL, which amongst the 2,553 acres of land being transferred to BK Marine Inc. The land includes mud lots 1 and 2, Commingsburg, Georgetown, Lot F, a portion of mud lot 3, and lots A and B and D, portions of North Commingsburg, Georgetown. The likes of Attorney at Law Christopher Ram called for an investigation to be launched into same, and the order was shared by PPP, Facebook page alleging illegality on the government's part. In a release on Thursday, NISIL denied involvement in any shady deal and labeled reports suggesting otherwise as absurd and crass. The release stated that the properties were vested to NISIL by Order 43 of 2003 and 42 of 2003. On December 4, 2006, a lease was entered between NISIL and BK International Company Inc. for 20 years with an option to purchase the property for $110 million. Same facts, right? BK said I waited for years. BK said he was pursuing transfer for over 12 years. This thing wasn't done with this government. This thing was done since in the days of the PPP. It was a tender, and the tender clearly says what you had to do, and we complied with whatever we had to do, and we were waiting all the time for the transfer. That's all. He said the agreement involved was a rental purchase agreement for which 3 persons submitted tenders, inclusive of late realtor Tony Reed. However, Reed died and the other person could not come up with the money, so he won the tender and entered into the agreement on December 4, 2006. The agreement was signed between Tiwari and former executive director of NISIL, Winston Brassington. It detailed the requirements needed to be met before one became eligible to purchase the property. Tiwari said these requirements were fulfilled, but the agreement also mandated that a letter from a bank proving that one had the finances to purchase the property, and that was provided. However, Tiwari was denied the purchase and possession of the property, took the matter to court, and was ordered to pay the sum of $22 million to be eligible for the purchase. Even though these payments were made, Tiwari said he was still denied ownership of the property. In 2017, a forward agreement was signed with NISIL for the purchase of the property. right? Those are in a nutshell. The same principle that applied for GRDB Wharf was applied for Duke Lodge. This is Guyana Chronicle of April 3, 2020. Dear editor, reference is being made to Kaicho News article Kingston Wharf purchased by BK days before election. Some years ago, I was the trade union representative on the privatization board, the only black person. When the property in question was put up by Bar Jack Geo government for sale, that property, which is located in Water Street, was the former GRDB Wharf, which was burnt down through questionable circumstances during the life of the PPP government. Among the bids for the property was one from BK International. Winston Brassington, executive director of NISA, recommended at the meeting the property would be best given to a company he was proposing, which was registered at Pagu Stores in Regent Street. The proposed company had no track record with any business. I objected. I objected because I looked at the proposal of that company, BK International and others, and found BK's proposal to be superior, satisfying the many requirements demanded by the PPPC government. Inasmuch as Brassington represented the company registered at Pagu, the CAGI representative and consumer representative on the board supported my justification for BK to be given the property. The entire board appointed by the PPPC government agreed. We will recommend to cabinet the property will go to BK. Let me make it very clear, I never knew BK, Brian Tewari at the time, but met him subsequently at the funeral of Mr. Christiani Lewis, the original owner of Watercress. What is instructive is that the PPP government took time in making sure the final and legal transfer of this and some other properties were never brought to finality. The reason behind this behavior is one of control over the intended lessee or owner. So if for any reason the said person or persons or company wants to approach the bank or third party to be involved in any business, it will require permission from the government to do so. As such, if the person to whom the property is given should take a position that conflicts with the government, the owner will never be able to get the support or comfort to do any business with a bank or third party because the government can exercise leverage to keep the party in check. The property has been in the possession of Brian Tewari and for all intended purposes was intended for transfer. The coalition government has done what the PPP initiated but failed to complete for whatever reason. This is a final and legal transfer to the owner. The same principle that applied for GRDB Wharf was applied for the Bidco House, which was also transferred to Captain Jerry Gavaya, currently chairman of the PSC. Said property, situated in Duke Street, Kingston, is now converted into a business called Duke Lodge. This is not a simple case of disposal of state asset, for if it is so, then both governments would be held responsible and have questionable intent in starting this deal and or completing it. In my opinion, the completion of the transfer of the GRDB Wharf is just that, a completion of one deal that started under government and which another government has taken the responsibility to execute. The timing, unfortunately, like everything in Guyana right now, given the climate, is an opportunity for political advantage. If in the presence of the worst pandemic in years, COVID-19 response and support is used for political ends, what else must we in Guyana expect? This is a letter by Lincoln Lewis. So you have heard snippets of the whole discussion surrounding, okay, the GRDB issue. The lines are opened again. Voice note. Oh, it's past 9.
Good morning,
so
Mr.
we'll see you to
Amsterdam.
the end.
Mr. Amsterdam, my take on this whole thing is with Mr. Jordan. If you look at it, Mr. Granger was the person as president at that time when Mr. Jordan was finance minister. He gave the instruction for the man to go ahead with whatever. Now, since these people from the cabal got the temerity to say that they're going to call this man up and lock him up for something that he gave instruction to do, why didn't Mr. Granger come out and say something? I give the instruction to the man or something. This man's silence is a real ridiculous thing to Guyana. It is, yeah, y'all, just know, to Guyana, it is very, very bad. Thank you.
But in all fairness, I can't say that I've heard Mr. Granger come out to defend anybody since August 2. Call it live, good morning.
Good morning. It is not an issue that people should really worried about Jordan, because Jordan ain't nothing can happen to Mr. Jordan. The reason why nothing is gonna happen to Mr. Jordan, because if the PPP try to bring Mr. Jordan in, understand me, on any charges, is that they're saying they're guilty of the same thing. So I don't know why we're worrying up ourselves, you understand me? Well, we know that the PPP is accustomed doing and distracting people. And as we go along with the distraction, instead of focusing on really what's really the issues. So we need to stop worrying about the Judge Jordan and focus upon the issues of the things what they're doing and where they're trying to get away with. Because these things are distractions. And we know this all the time. That's my contribution. Nothing is going to happen to Jordan, because if anything happened to Jordan, the PPP is saying they are guilty of the same thing that they're trying to show the public about Jordan. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Voice note.
It's me again, boss man. I listened to the lady. I me say nothing but Nandalal, you know.
It's 9:15. Is there another call? Just a little bit on the Rickford Burke arrest. Mr. Slow is saying, or he is reminding, that he made a report to the police about Nandalal making threats against him on NCN. We covered that report when Paul Slow went to court after coming back to the country, when they attempted to arrest him although he was at court. That same day report was made to the police on Nandalal's threatening behavior and so on against Mr. Slow. To date, Mr. Slow has not heard anything from it. But Soku can be accusing and charging Burke of violation of the Cybercrime Act. What about Nandalal? Why hasn't Soku and the Guyana Police Force acted on a complaint made by a citizen of this country residing in this country, but issuing wanted bulletin for somebody who is residing outside of the borders of this country? Call A Live. This is my last call for the day, for this program.
Good morning, Kadaki. Great show. I'd like to wish Rhonda a happy Port Strong Day. And now when it comes to the local elections, and let the people understanding what's happening, what is the history when it comes to when the PPP was been in power for 23 years? What history do we have that the Guyanese people are going to do anything? None. So in my belief, nothing is still going to happen, because they don't have the fight in them or the understanding of how important it is. So based on past history, I see nothing happening to change the dynamics and to change the PPP power drunk way of doing things. So while the coalition was in power, those are things that they should have taken up to change the local dynamics of how things are run, and nothing was really done. So no progress was made for the 23 years while the PPP was in power. I really do not see a lot happening after the fact, since they're back in power, and it's just the coalition was just in power for a couple of years. That's just a blip. So while they're in the wilderness, the PPP carry on with their power, accumulate wealth, and while we just get crumbs in Guyana. And that's my take.
Thank you, caller. It's now 8:17 and it's time to wrap the program. There are a few voice notes I want to play for you. And so let us go ahead and get this done. Where are they? Oh, they seem to have been all played. And if they were all played, then it's time for me to say goodbye to you. Have a great day. Join me tomorrow morning. It's Thursday. I know you would have been expecting Mr. Winston Jordan. I doubt whether he's up and ready as yet to come back. But I'm sure that we're going to be having some serious financial discussions on what's happening in this country. And we're going to be talking about lots of other things. So join me tomorrow morning. Same place, same time for another program of Buxton Your Morning Time. And Rhonda, do enjoy your birthday, girl.